Good morning, Year 3, and welcome to a brand new week of reading. This week we are going to be continuing on with The Big Friendly Giant. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the new vocabulary words that we are going to be learning this week. Okay, so as I said, we are going to be looking at The Big Friendly Giant, which is a book by Roald Dahl, and the illustrations are done by Quentin Blake. Lots of you said last week that Roald Dahl was one of your favourite authors, so I'm glad that we're reading his book. Okay. Sorry. Right, here we are going to learn some words. The first word is pavement. Pavement. And if you look down in the corner where my face is, you can see me doing the actions. This week is going to be a bit different because I'm going to give you the words rather than hiding them and getting you to guess them. So a pavement is a hard surface that's covered in concrete. Pavement. Fantastic. Make sure you're joining in at home and repeating after me. Trembling. Trembling. If you are trembling, it means shaking or quivering. Okay, so you're shaking or quivering, and people can tremble for lots of different reasons. Some people tremble out of fear. You might be trembling because you're really afraid of getting in trouble. You can also, sometimes your body trembles because it's very cold outside. For example, I was trembling as I was walking through the freezing cold snow. Okay, the next word is withdrew. Withdrew. Let me hear you say it. Fantastic. And the action for withdrew is just as if you're taking something back. Withdrew means to remove or take away something from a particular place. Withdrew. The next word is glimpse. Glimpse. And if you look at the picture, you can see a little cute raccoon is having a quick glimpse. A glimpse means to see something briefly or quickly. The next word is pace. Pace. Now, a pace can be walking. It can be speed of walking. It can also be a single step. And in this context, a pace is a single step. So this man took one pace forward. Pace. It's a single step. Peer. Peer. Peer means to look with difficulty or concentration at someone or something. For example, Peer, Miss Williams, was peering at the child's work because she couldn't read their small handwriting. Peer. You can see this man is peering out of the window. Fantastic. So we're just going to go over all of those words again. Pavement with the actions. Pavement. And you can see there's a concrete hard pavement. This is the pavement. It's next to the road. It's usually raised, so that's how you can tell. And it's a hard surface that's covered in concrete. Trembling means when you shake or shiver. You can see this man is very, very cold, it looks like. Withdrew means to take something away or take something from a particular place. You can see in this picture, this man is withdrawing his money from an ATM machine. Glimpse. Glimpse, and we're just going to do a quick glimpse, turn of our heads to see something quickly or briefly. Pace is one single step. So pace, it's just like I'm moving my body forward as if I'm walking forward, one single step. And peer. For peer, you want to look closely. Peer. That means looking with difficulty or concentration at someone or something. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to read the next section, which is chapter 2 of The Big Friendly Giant. I have it on my screen, so you can use this to help you. Otherwise, if you would like to print off the text, you can do that. I am going to follow it with my reading finger, which is actually not a finger, it's a reading laser. You at home should be following the text with your reading fingers. Make sure that you read with expression. That means in some places your voice is going to go higher, and in some places your voice is going to go lower. You should always be reading with a loud, clear voice so that people will want to listen to you read. It's interesting and you want it to be engaging. Make sure you're following the text as I read along. In some places I'll tell you to join in, other places I might just read. Or if you would rather completely read the whole thing by yourself, feel free to do so. This chapter is chapter 2 and it's called Who. It wasn't a human. It couldn't be. It was 4 times as tall as the tallest human. It was so tall, its head was higher than the upstairs window of the houses. Sophie opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Her throat, like her whole body, was frozen with fright. Sometimes when you're very scared of something, you just completely freeze and you can't even move, even if you're scared and you want to run away. This was the witching hour, all right. The tall black figure was coming her way. It was keeping very close to the houses across the street, hiding in the shadowy places where there was no moonlight. On and on it came, nearer and nearer. But it was moving in spurts. It would stop, then it would move on, then it would stop again. But what on earth was it doing? Can you join in with me for this next paragraph? Aha! Sophie could see now what it was up to. It was stopping in front of each house. It would stop and peer, well done, into the upstairs window of each house in the street. It actually had to bend down to peer into the upstairs window. That's how tall it was. I'm going to read this next part on my own. It would stop and peer in. Then it would slide on to the next house and stop again and peer in, and so on all along the street. It was much closer now, and Sophie could see it more clearly. Join in with me for the next part. Looking at it carefully, she decided it had to be some kind of person. Obviously, it was not a human, but it was definitely a person. A giant person, perhaps. Sophie started hard across the misty, which is last week's word, moonlit street. The giant, if that is what he was wearing a long black cloak. In one hand, he was holding what looked like a very long, thin trumpet. So we're turning to page 5 now, top of page 5. I'm going to read this by myself. In the other hand, he held a large suitcase. The giant had stopped right now in front of Mr. and Mrs. Gucci's house. The Guccis had a green grocer's shop in the middle of the high street, and the family lived above the shop. The 2 Gucci children slept in the upstairs front room. Sophie knew that. Page 6 now, turn over. Join in with me. The giant was peering through the window into the room where Michael and Jane Gucci were sleeping. From across the street, Sophie watched and held her breath. She saw the giant step back a pace, so step back 1 pace, 1 step, and put the suitcase down on the pavement. Pavement. He bent over and opened the suitcase. He took something out of it. It looked like a glass jar, one of those square ones with a screw top. Join in with me for this next paragraph. He unscrewed the top of the jar and poured what was in it into the end of the long trumpet thing. Sophie watched, trembling. Well done, trembling. Continue with me. She saw the giant straighten up again, and she saw him poke the trumpet in through the open upstairs window of the room where the Gucci children were sleeping. She saw the giant take a deep breath and he blew through the trumpet. I'm going to read this next bit. No noise came out, but it was obvious to Sophie that whatever had been in the jar had now been blown through the trumpet into the Gucci children's bedroom. What could it be? Join in with me. As the giant withdrew, that means removed from a particular place, he's removed the trumpet from the window. As the giant withdrew the trumpet from the window and bent down to pick up the suitcase, he happened to turn his head and glance across the street. In the moonlight, Sophie caught a glimpse, so she caught a quick look, of an enormous, long, pale, wrinkly face with the most enormous ears. I'm going to read this next bit by myself. The nose was as sharp as a knife, and above the nose there were 2 bright flashing eyes, and the eyes were staring straight at Sophie. There was a fierce and devilish look about them. Sophie gave a yelp and pulled back from the window. Join in with me for this last bit. She flew across the dormitory and jumped into her bed and hid under the blanket. And there she crouched, still as a mouse, and tingling all over. Fantastic. So we have read the next chapter, which is chapter 2, pages 4 to 6 of The Big Friendly Giant. What we are now going to do is we're going to match up our vocabulary words with their definitions. All you need to do is write down number 1 and then write down the correct word that matches number 1. You don't need to write out all of the sentences. Just write down one number and the word that it is. Okay, so for number 1, if I thought the answer for number 1, look with difficulty or concentration at something. If I thought the answer was pavement, I would write 1 pavement. Obviously, that's not the answer, but you at home can find the answer. So I'm going to read the definitions to you. You're going to pause the video and then find the answer. Number 1, which you need to write down number 1, is to look with difficulty or concentration at someone or something. Pause the video. Number 2 is a hard surface that is covered in concrete. Pause the video so that you can answer those questions. Number 3 is to see something briefly or quickly. Number 4 is a single step. Using the words below, write down the number and the correct word. Pause the video so that you can do that now. Number 5 is to remove or take away something from a particular place. Number 6 is shaking or quivering. Pause the video so that you can answer those 2 questions. Fantastic. By now, you should have answered all the questions. Before you send your working to Seesaw, make sure you check the answers. So I want you to check your work with the answers and make sure that you've got it correct. Once you've done that, you can upload your work onto Seesaw for your teachers to see. Thank you for joining your reading session, learning new vocabulary with Miss Williams. I will see you in the next one. Bye, Year 3.